morning to all. So yesterday, we are discussed about the causes of extinction. So what are the causes of extinction in the evolution part? So actually the evolution was the formation of the such type of new organs, how the new organs are formed, how the population. So if a new generation, new organs are developed in a particular population, that population was completely separate from their older population. So that was mainly considered here as evolution, but the extinction is one of the reason that may use to cause, that may use to decrease the population, that was that may cause a great impact on the evolution process. So that may cause a great impact. So that was the extinction, and so total the entire unit of evolution, that was mainly based upon the, so overall the brief discussion about the entire evolution, that is Lamarckism, Neo-Lamarckism, Darwinism and Neo-Darwinism is there, and a modern synthetic theory, evidences of evolution and the forces of evolution, Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium and genetic drift. So genetic drift is there, gene pool, genetic frequency and genetic load and genetic flow is there, and Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium is also there. And isolation, the types of isolation, that is pre-mating isolation, post-mating isolation is also there, and the causes for extinction. So we already discussed and speciation, that is the types of speciation, allopatric and sympatric. So such total topics are included inside the evolution, and so we once we are going to discuss briefly so about our entire syllabus. So that is mainly based upon the Lamarckism and the Neo-Lamarckism and the Darwinism and the Neo-Darwinism, and we already so we left one topic inside the pre-mating isolation and the post-mating isolation. So non-random mating is also there, that is also one of the topic, non-random mating. This is also one of the topic, so we left. So today we are also going to discuss the topic now. So the entire syllabus, so we are going to discuss what happens is so the mainly the evolution was completely based upon, that was used to form so only a new development of a new population from their ancestor population. That is the main concept of evolution. So it was so you remember this, what is mean by evolution, then only you can be able to write in your final examination point of view. Why? Because it is completely become a dry topic, there is no so diagrams are there for this topic. So you can write completely the description. So based upon the one that was mainly, so first you remind so remember that what is mean by evolution. So what is the evolution? So the how the population was new population was generated, so in an ecosystem. So what happens is for some example, our previous organisms, the Homo sapiens, the human beings, the previous human being, some thousand years back, so how was the human being? How was the human being? So that completely become represented like a monkey-like structure. You know very well that is evolution pattern, the patterns of development from the human being. So the such type of development. So for the living mechanism, the living method is also different from our ancestors and from ourselves. So most of the so advantages are there, and as more amount of development is occurred from our ancestors to our generation. Most of the differences are there in the middle of our ancestors and ourselves. So you recall once. So once you recall yourself and your previous organism, your previous ones, your previous generations. So then what happens? So you can able to find out more amount of the examples, more amount of the variations between so from your ancestors and yourself. So at that time what happens? So there is no development is there. So then what happens is so now so we are most advantageous conditions. So so that's why so we can completely so we are not so like our previous ones. So most of the changes are there. So in the previous one, those are completely represented like the human beings are resembled like a monkey like mechanism. So those are completely like a monkey like structure. So that was they used to walk 4 legs. So 2 hands and the 2 legs they are used to walk. Previously so gradually what happened, some development was take place from their ancestors. Then what happens, they used to walk with the help of 2 legs only. So with the help of 2 legs only, some gradual development what takes place. That was and gradually what happens, the living mechanism was somewhat completely so changed. Some that was the fire. So the first there is no fire, so that was used for so they used to eat the raw vegetables, so but not a processed food. The processed food may not be available at that so at that time, so they not so any idea, so any awareness for the processed food, so they consume the raw vegetables only. So they caught the the different types of the vegetables and the leaves and the stem parts, so they can able to consume. And gradually then what happens, the remaining organism, some more development was takes place. So when the light, so the light was so discovered, so then what happens is, so where they used to scratch one that was one stone with the another stone, then immediately what happens, the scratching mechanism then used to, so that was a flash was so developed, a flash was observed. So those flash they used for identification of discovering of completely the light. So that was helpful for the processed food. Then onwards they used to process the food, so they boil the food, they boil the vegetables and then eat. And now what happens, some more development was occurred, so different methods are there for the cooking. So they completely cook the food material, the raw vegetables, they collect the raw vegetables and they process that vegetables, then only they eat. So in ourselves also, from our generation, so we eat a completely processed food, so the completely cooked food with the help of different types of the machines are available for us. So different types of the stoves, different types of the equipments are available for us for the processing of the food material, so for the cooking of the food material. So such type of developments are completely comes under the evolution process. So these all are comes under the process of evolution. So by the walking of the 4 legs, usage of 4 legs and the 2 legs for walking, and the processed food, raw vegetables are consumed, and the processed food, cooked food. So these such type of there so completely the awareness was occurred. So that complete such development was considered here as that was only comes under the topic was only here, that was completely the development and the evolution. The evolution is nothing but such type of development. So our ancestors, we compare. So we compare with ourselves and our generation and our previous generation, most of the changes are there, most of the variations are there. So first you remember what is the mean by evolution, then only you can able to write. So based on the single line, so the single sentence, so then only you can able to write the entire topic about the evolution. So such type of development should be occurred from our previous generation. It was considered here as the evolution that was mainly explained by the Lamarck. So that was mainly Lamarckism. And the Darwin was also explained, but the Darwin was explained, so that was completely some changes are there from the Lamarck to the Darwin, that is he was explained, so that was mainly he was coincided with the that was the Mendelian laws of inheritance. So the inheritance that was completely vary. So the genetical structure, so the organisms are evolved, so the evolution of the generations are takes place, that is due to the transmission of the genes, that is a genetic flow. So we already discussed genetic flow to the one generation to the another generation. So the then what happens, a group of population, those are overlapping population, at that time the gene flow was occurred. The genetical structure is a precursor for the formation of the new generation, that was mainly by the Darwin. He was coincided with the Mendelian. So Mendelian laws, the Mendel was completely explained about the inheritance laws. So those inheritance laws are some characters, the dominant character and the recessive character. So both are explained by the Mendel laws. So the dominant characters are almost so those again shows the domination on the recessive. So 75% of the dominant characters are only expressed in the next generation. The recessive was only expressed in the some amount was expressed the recessive character in the heterozygous condition only, but not in the homozygous condition. And the heterozygosity is also problematic to the so next generations are become problematic. Why? Because the heterozygosity was developed in a population that leads to cause the mutations, and those are considered here as the lethal genes. The lethal genes are nothing but so the genetical structure. So those are genetical structures are mainly the lethal genes are. So if the homozygous condition was become so that was some genes are expressed in the homozygous condition are problematic, and the heterozygous condition is also problematic. Sometimes that should be happen. So in the some of the lethal genes are so in a homozygous condition, so those are going to be die. In the heterozygous condition they may not be going to be die. So those are considered as the lethal genes. So in these conditions, so always the homozygous and the heterozygous condition population was occurred in a population. So it was completely vary from the Lamarck and the Darwin, and some changes are occurred from the Lamarck to the neo-Lamarckism and the Darwin to the neo-Darwinism. And new inventions are explained by the neo-Darwinism and also by the neo-Lamarckism. So both are explained, that is the main concept is what was nothing but the evolution. That was and a non-random mating is there. We already discussed that is a pre-mating isolation and the post-mating isolation. That is a non-random mating means so the marriage between the closely relative population, closely relative organisms. So the type of mating was considered as a so non-random mating. So it was mainly occurred so that evolution. It may not be helpful for the evolution process. That is so closely related persons are married, so they got married, then what happens? So that there is no changes are occurred on their population. So the population was as usually continued. So but some changes are occurred, that was the random mating only. The random mating was nothing but one area person was got married with the another area. So some so duration, that was a long duration, long distances. So they are going to marry so long distances person. Then what happened at that area? The climatic conditions are completely different. So those genetical structures are also different, and their mutation conditions are also separate. The mutations are mainly occurred. Those mutations are got transferred in the middle of closely related persons are getting married. Then only the genetical structure so that same genetical structure was so get transmitted in the middle of the closely related persons on their the blood related persons, in the middle of those blood related persons. Then what happens is such type of mechanisms, such mechanism was mainly helpful for the functioning. So that was comes under the non-random mating. The closely related persons are getting married, then only it was not make the any impact on the evolution. If the persons getting married with the so some distances, one state with the another state, one country with the another country, then what happens is the genetical structure is completely vary, and so there the mutation conditions are also vary. The mutations are transmitted from one generation to the another generation as it easily, or sometimes what happens is if the mutated gene was transmitted, some changes. If at the time of transmission of the mutated gene, some changes are occurred in the mutated gene, then what happens? That should be become harmless. That become harmless. If the normal gene at the time of transmission, at the time of cell division, so that was abnormalities occurred on the cell divisions, some problems are occurred in the cell divisions, what happened? The normal gene become mutated gene, then that was entered into the another generation, then what happened? The mutated gene was entered into the other organisms. So then what happens is that was a diseased condition, the abnormalities are occurred on their generation. So but these mutated genes are also one of the cause for these are also cause a great impact on the evolution. So those are mainly some persons are so they mainly mutated genes. The mutations are also one of the part for the evolution process. The evolution was are also so they also make impact on the evolution. So if a normal persons are there, so if the mutated genes, but sometimes by the effect of the mutations the phenotypic changes are also occurred, but not the genotypic issues. So genotypic issues are nothing but the genetical structure, those organisms are affected genetically. So such genetical structures are also got affected on those persons. So the genetically those the organisms are affected, so that was their genetical structure. So the effects are mainly on the so those are mainly the structure of the organisms. So that is a completely the genetical issue, and the phenotypic issue the external characters. So the structure of their organisms, and their face structure, and their eye coloration, hair coloration, and the structure of the hair, and so these all are comes under their phenotypic issues. So those are such phenotypic issues are mainly acts upon. The phenotypic issues are also make such type of impact on the other organisms. So such phenotypic issues are nothing but, so if the mutated gene was more amount of the mutations are occurred in an ecosystem in the environment, such mutations are so transmitted in the population. So then what happens is, so more amount of the mutations are occurred, then what happens if a new population was generated with the different phenotypic issues. So the mutations are also make a great impact on the evolution. So at the time of the random mating and the non-random mating are also causes differences. The non-random mating was not cause any type of mutations, but random mating was used to cause the mutations. So that is also variation. So such variations, and that can also make some type of impact on the non-random mating and the random mating. So you can able to write so at the time of so these evolution, the evolution was such a the development from their ancestor generation to their previous generation. So the ancestors, those are phenotypic and genetically they completely vary. Why? Because so from that generation to the our generation some changes are takes place. So phenotypically and genotypically, then only so we got a different from our ancestors. So such type of variation was also considered here as that was the evolution process. So if the main concept of genetic drift and genetic flow, so such a see this, if the genetic drift, so it was so it was a natural hazards, due to the natural hazards. So any problems are occurred so by the genetic drift, so the natural hazards, tsunamis and the floods, so earthquakes, then immediately what happens is in a group of population, see this. So now the number of individuals are there, a group of species are there. And so any problems, natural hazards are occurred, then what happens is only some of the organisms are only survived, and the remaining organisms are going to be die by the effect of the natural hazards. Only these population can only be survived. So the surviving population was again so those organisms are reproduced, and they can able to reproduce, and they can convert it to another group of population, and then so a new population was generated, a new population. A new population was generated. So it is comes under the evolution process. So it is also considered it was a evolution process. So in this evolution process, so it is a genetic drift. So next genetic flow is also there. So, in this genetic flow, see this, that was a group of population is there. So, within the population some changes are occurred. So, any problems are occurred due to the more amount of the persons are so suffered with the diseases or any other. So, then what happens is those group of individuals are the number was decreased, that is a genetic flow. So, some population number was decreased. So, it was also only some of the organisms are survived. So, those survived organisms are again converted to a new population. Again converted to, so the genetic flow is occurred within the population. Within the population like the sympatric speciation. Within the, so it is the sympatric speciation, and so the genetic drift was comes under the allopathic speciation. So, it was completely divided from the main population, but it may not be divided from the main population. The genetic drift, so the main population was completely varied from their ancestor, but here they may not be got separate from their ancestor. That is the main variation between the that was genetic flow and the genetic drift. And some other reasons, that is extinction is also one of the reason. The extinction, so the evolution the evolution was always encouraged, that is it was mainly always explaining about the, that was a generation producing of a new generation, formation of the new generation, that is the main concept of evolution. But extinction is there, the extinction is another part that was that may also cause a great impact on the evolution. Why? Because so some of the organism due to the diseases or any other the loss of habitat, some of the reasons are used to remove the one group of species from the particular environment. Means such organisms are completely extincted from that particular area. So, that what happened, there is no evolution. If more amount of the extinction was there, the extinction levels are increased, and now that may cause, that was a decreasing of the evolution. But the evolution is always encouraged, the generation that was always used to generate a new population, always increase a new population. A new population generations are always encouraged by the evolution. That is a main concept of evolution. Evolution is nothing but the development, a gradual development, so changes. So, those changes from their ancestor to their previous generation, but extinction is completely removing of the organism from the particular environment, that is nothing but the concept of evolution. That was a completely vary, that is a completely vary from so such a extinction. So, the extinction was it was a separate manner, it was a separate track from the evolution. So, why the evolution is separate track from the evolution is the extinction was leads to remove the such type of organisms completely washed away from particular organism from the environment. Then what happens? There is no more evolution, there is no evolution patterns, there is no development. So, such a group of individuals are separated. So, from the any of the hazards, natural hazards, any of the problems, those group of individuals are converted to again they reproduce and their population was increased and they converted to a new generation and new population. Then what happens, they give rise to their next generation, they give rise to their younger generation. Then what happens, so their population was converted to a new population, the species are converted to a new species or developed from that particular area. But such type of development may not be takes place so mainly in the extinction. So the extinction is completely the removing of the organism from the evolution. So the removing of the organisms, that is that was so total these are the different characters that is extinction and evolution. The extinction is vary and the evolution is also vary. Why? Because so if so there is no development was occurred due to the effect of extinction. Why? Because more amount of the organisms are so removed away with the help of extinction, so due to the some other reasons. But the evolution is a separate track and it is a separate way, it is a completely the development, but it is a destruction pattern. It is a completely a destruction and a removing. So both are completely vary and a contrast topics. So the extinction is vary and the evolution both are completely contrast topics. So it may cause a great impact on the so evolution. So that was there is no development of the new species was takes place due to the effect of extinction. So by that reason what happens is so if most of the organisms like the dinosaurs are completely extincted, so now there is no dinosaurs are available from on the earth. So if so these are available only in the form of fossils and some of the organisms are now in an endangered condition. So those endangered fauna so ready to extincted, so if those are extincted then what happened, so their ancestor generation, so actually the ancestor generation was give rise to a new population. So it was always used to increase their next generation from their ancestors to the new population. But here so if the extinction was used to the endangered fauna or extincted fauna, there is no new population. Why? Because only their ancestors are remain in the form of fossils. So these are not useful for the evolution process. Why? Because these are completely different tracks, different so manners. So such the evolution, that is the extinction process, due to the effect of the most of the persons are undergoes different types of the diseases and a loss of their habitat, and due to the pollution. So the pollution was it may cause a more amount of deforestation. So the deforestation is the main cause of our pollution. So the removing of a more amount of the plants. So the plant area, the forest area was completely reduced. So nowadays, so the forest area become so much reduced, due to that effect the wild animals. Most amount of the wild animals are now in endangered condition and some of the animals are completely extincted. So due to the effect of different reasons are there, the loss of their habitat actually, so the adaptations are there, each and every organism for their so the living organism. So their living area is completely adapted to a particular organisms. So those area any problems are takes place at that area, then what happens is such organisms are removed away from that area. That is also one of the cause, and most of the persons are going to be die due to some other reasons of the diseases. That is also leads to cause the extinction pattern. Now that may cause a great impact on the evolution. So it is a topic that was a completely the non-random meeting was completed today. So, it is our today's topic, it is completed. So, we will meet tomorrow with new topic. Thank you.